On American Thanksgiving, it's time to take stock what we're thankful for in the hockey world.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special Thanksgiving edition of Locked On NHL. I am Nick Zararis, the host of the very bad Edmonton Oilers, and that is Hunter Hodies, the host of Locked On Penguins. We want to thank everyone that is making Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Locked On NHL is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. On today's show, we are going to talk about things in the hockey world we are grateful for. We're not limited to just the first month and a half of this season. You can stretch back into last season, the offseason. In my case, there are quite a few things on the horizon I'm excited for that I want to talk about. Hunter, my friend, happy Thanksgiving. First of all, we're getting into Olympic hockey shenanigans already, and there will be a little bit of Olympics talk on this episode. But what do you want to talk about first? What are you most thankful for to get off rip?
Okay, so this isn't even just this season, Nick. It's not really last season. It's honestly the last 20 plus years. I'm still super thankful. Yes, I'm the co-host of Locked On Penguins. I'm super thankful that I've gotten to see 20 plus seasons now of Crosby, Malkin, and Letang just doing their thing. Sidney Crosby is the ageless wonder in the NHL. Still looks like he's 25 out there at times. Evgeni Malkin is leading the team in points this year, Nick, looking like he's 29 instead of 39. And Kris Letang, yeah, he's at the end of his career. Yeah, he's not as good anymore. But I'm still super thankful that they are on the Penguins and that they're going to retire as Penguins unless something very weird and just out of pocket happens. But I don't see that happening. Just super grateful, man. It's rare these days when you see three players kind of come in together and then go out together, and that's what it looks like it's going to happen here. So 3 Stanley Cups, 4 trips to the final, 5 trips to Eastern Conference Finals. We're pretty spoiled here, but, this franchise has been spoiled, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, if I'm being even more honest.
So building off of that, because I had a Sid point I wanted to talk about. It's been a long time since we've seen Sidney Crosby in Olympic hockey.
Yeah.
We have never seen Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, and Sidney Crosby on the same team in the Olympics. And we've been robbed of 2 Olympic cycles where those guys should have been on a team together. And it's unfortunate we probably only get this once. Would I be shocked if Sid was still playing hockey 4 years from now? Not entirely shocked. It's not implausible that 42-year-old Sidney Crosby could still be playing hockey at a reasonably high level and Canada would bring him. But this is going to be something really special. And I talk about this a lot. I talked about this a ton last summer in early June going into the Stanley Cup final. And that lineage of the great Canadian hockey player, that mantle has been passed from Gretzky to Lemieux to Sid to McDavid, who is holding it at the moment. And you can make an argument maybe Nathan MacKinnon is passing him in the immediate moment. You can make an argument that Celebrini and Bedard are on the horizon and coming. Maybe you think it's somebody who hasn't played in the NHL yet. But that mantle, that figure as being the great player, and Connor got a taste of it. You saw the way they reacted when they won the 4 Nations. You saw the moments of relief on his face. And I think the contrast of that versus the end of last year's Stanley Cup final to come back to win the 4 Nations, to score the game-winning goal in the 4 Nations, just a taste of what it can be like and why the stubbornness that surrounded so much of the labor strife that prevented the NHL players from going to the Olympics is dumb. This is a golden opportunity. And we'll talk about USA hockey later because I definitely want to hit on that in this episode. But I'm just thankful we're going to get to see the best players in the world play together, and not even just from a hockey sense, but from a narrative and a historical context. It's important to pass that lineage, and it's why I know you're in agreement. You want at least one of Celebrini, Bedard, or Schaefer to go to the Olympics next year to keep passing that baton along.
Right, and I do think you're going to see at least one of those players on Team Canada, if not 2, Nick. If I had to predict it right now, the 2 I would predict is Bedard and Celebrini. I think Schaefer, it might be still a little too early, even though he is, you saw the report, Nick, he's getting drug tested for the Olympics and all that. But I think it might be still a little soon. But if I had to predict it right now, I'm going to go both Bedard and Celebrini. But hey, there's going to be it's tough competition. We all know how Canada has the best forwards. It's like that every time. And yeah, we're going to get into more of Team USA stuff later, Nick, because I have something specifically for Team USA that I want to bring up for this episode. But it's also so good for the Olympics as a whole because you're sending all the NHL players, and it's only going to help grow your game and grow the NHL more. I mean, Nick, this is the first time that NHL players are going in 12 years. Like, you and I were at high school at that time, my man. Now we're almost 30 years old. It's been way too long since this happened. So I'm excited. Doesn't matter what the time difference is. I'll wake up at, 9 a.m. if I have to watch some of these games that are obviously overseas. I'll wake up at 7 a.m. if they want to play, even earlier in the day in that time zone. So I'm just really excited, man. I think this is going to be a great thing for the league and the sport in general. And then after that, Nick, just to take it a step further, you have the World Cup of Hockey coming back. You have another Olympics. They've already agreed to both of those things in 2028 and 2030. So in general, again, we'll get to this next year's Olympics later, but in general, international hockey is back and hopefully for a long time.
To stay.
Yes.
Not just for a long time, permanently to
Yes.
stay. As much as the novelty of AHL guys and college hockey players being in the Olympics was, all due respect, I don't really want to watch Steven Giunta play hockey when I could watch Austin Matthews play hockey. Just hand up. I'm going to be honest. No disrespect. You make a nice living in the AHL. It's an honest living riding the bus in the A. But I want to see the best in the world representing their countries. You think about what summer basketball looks like during the Olympics and how much fun that is. But real quick in this first segment before we close out, on the note of the all times, I'm thankful I got to see one of those Gretzky records I never thought would be broken. Seeing Ovechkin get that done was really motivational for me to get off my ass and to do a little more. If Ovi can still be playing as a best in the world caliber player at 40, the rest of us don't really have a lot of excuses. Sure, he might have more natural talent, but you got to work for it. And those types of moments, I can still remember going to sleep, waking up for school, waking up during the summer the next day, but before going to camp, turning on SportsCenter and wanting to see if Bonds broke the record because that happened at like 12:30 on the East Coast. Yeah. And seeing that happen on SportsCenter is something that I knew it happened because that was on the graphic on the screen before they even got to the highlights. But that's a moment in time. Ovi breaking the goal scoring record, that's a moment in time. We took almost a full episode earlier this season talking about could Austin Matthews even make it a game? And he would basically need to score 50 goals for another 12 years to even have a chance. This is the highest level of player possible. And it's really cool. Him and Sid coincided entering the league at a time when the league needed it as desperately as possible coming out of a lockout that canceled the whole season.
And you see in interviews, Ovi has even said Sid and I saved the league. And they're right, just considering the way that they played right when they got into the league. And, going off that, I do have something that I'm eventually going to be thankful for. Crosby is 14 points away from passing Mario Lemieux for the most points in Penguins franchise history. Nick, no one ever thought that record was going to be broken right after Lemieux hit it. He finished his career 1,723 points with the Penguins. Right now, Sid's at 1,710. 13 to tie, 14 to break it. After this, I don't think anyone is ever touching that record in Penguins franchise history unless they, get someone else that's close to equal of Sid and Mario. But again, I guess we'll have to see. No one ever thought Mario's record was going to be broken until they got Sid, and now Sid's about to do it. So again, just another double whammy of why I'm so thankful for Crosby's career in general and just the way that he has conducted himself. So it's funny. I had to go off of that OV record because for as awesome as it is, and I don't think that record is potentially ever going to be broken, I think I can say the same here with Sid, that I don't think his franchise points record is going to be broken. Once he does it, it's probably going to happen by January at the latest. He only needs 13 to tie it. And considering the way he produces still in the NHL, it's going to be happening sooner rather than later.
And with all that said, we are going to take our first break on today's edition of Locked On NHL. When we come back, we'll continue talking about what we're thankful for, including teams realizing when it's time to actually make a decision. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, or if you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to huge fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Of course, it is Thanksgiving. You have got your normal football triple header. Packers at the Lions 2.5-point home favorites. Chiefs Cowboys in the 4:00 window. The Chiefs 3.5-point road favorites at Dallas. I probably will be riding with Dak and the Cowboys. And then the nightcap, Joe Burrow potentially returning for the Bengals against Lamar and the Ravens. Both of those teams desperately in need of a win. A whole lot of fun on the football slate today. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app for your chance at $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much to everyone making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day and helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So, my friends, as we move along in this episode and talk about these stories, I am very grateful for the teams that have the conviction, who understand where they are in the pecking order and start to act like it. The Penguins, ironically, are playing very well right now, in spite of the fact that they came into this year with as low of expectations as possible because they understood what needed to be done. You look around the league, and it looks like Barry Trotz is being forced to realize the situation at hand here, the mess he's dealing with. I think you're looking at some of these situations like what's going on in Philadelphia, and maybe we're not as close as we thought we were. The Rangers, who with each passing day seem more likely to trade Panarin and continue to try and get younger and cheaper. But it's hard. And the reason I talk about this in the context of thankfulness, there is nothing worse than a meaningless season. There is nothing worse than a season where there are no stakes, where you don't make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to make the lottery, and you watch your team win 35 to 40 games, and they're not awful, but they're not very good. The stats aren't particularly exciting. There's no storylines to tug on. And my ideal dream world, Hunter, before I throw it to you, is all 32 teams being reasonably competitive and having a sense of direction and knowing where they want to go. I don't like this mess of slop we have right now, where you've got 15 teams all just banking loser points and staying in the mix. Be bad, commit to being bad, and make your team better in the long run.
I hear you. It's just funny because you do look at the standings. The East is especially so cluttered. And you and I talked about this last week where really, Nick, there's no one in the conference right now that is saying, hey, we're out of it. Not even Buffalo, for example. They've won 2 in a row, 4 of their last 5. And they're like, hey, we're kind of right back in here, even though we're 9-13 overall. 4 of those, losses are loser points. But again, even, the Penguins, they've not been playing well as of late, but they're still right in the race too. You go to the West, that's where there's a couple of teams that are going to start this sell-off. Nick, you didn't even mention Vancouver, for example. Jim Rutherford, and Patrick Allvin have made it very clear that a lot of their players are available except for Quinn Hughes. Curious to see still how that situation goes, because if they make the wrong moves, I could still see Quinn Hughes being like, see ya, I'm going to go play with my brothers in New Jersey, which would not be good for you since you're a Rangers guy, or me since I'm a Penguins guy. But even Calgary, for example, they're still doing bad. I'm curious to see.
And they're in denial. And the Flames are in just outright denial, which doesn't help.
They need to realize that they need to rebuild, just because I know they got close last year, Nick, but you're looking at the way they're playing this year. They got to start trading some guys and getting a bit younger. That's the thing. Nashville, I saw the report that Barry's looking for a first and a prospect for Ryan O'Reilly. Good luck on that one. I don't think he's going to get that, but at least he's starting to commit to a direction. Even when the Penguins, finally missed the playoffs, Kyle Dubas finally, after that, committed to a direction and committed to rebuilding on the fly and getting this team back to contention as urgently as possible. There's nothing worse than being in the mushy middle where you're not really contending, but you're not really bad either. And there's a lot of those teams, I feel like, in the league right now, Nick. I think, for example, the Rangers are a perfect example of that, where they're kind of teetering on the edge of, we want to make the playoffs, but also at the same time, we're not very good. But you have a GM, Nick, who I don't think realizes that yet. So it's a lot of moving parts right now in the league. At least for me, something I'm thankful for. It's a little bit different. I'm just thankful for so much talent that is in the league right now, man. You could turn on any single game at any time of night, and you will see legitimate great talent on display. It doesn't matter what team you're watching. And, it makes for some great highlight reel moments every single night. I mean, heck, Bedard is doing amazing things in Chicago. Celebrini continues to be fantastic in San Jose. And hell, Nick, they're right there with the Oilers right now in the standings. Who saw that coming going into December right now? But, Anaheim, obviously. But there's just so much talent right now in the league that I implore anyone, if you haven't gotten, an ESPN Plus subscription to watch all the NHL games whenever you want, please do it, just because there is so much freaking talent in this league right now, and I'll be grateful for that for a long time.
Oh, and I wanted to add on to that because my next one was similar. I know our Montreal stocks are kind of taking a dip right now. I know they're not playing very well.
Yeah.
I know Ottawa isn't playing very well at the moment.
All the Canadian teams are very bad right now.
Yes. And I know the Sharks are still not a serious playoff team, ditto the Blackhawks, but I am grateful for the next wave of teams that seem to be on the horizon, because it's not that I'm sick of watching greatness. I could watch Florida and Tampa and the same teams over at Dallas, Colorado, but the league is better when there are more teams in the mix and the more it cycles through. I want to see Montreal become a perennial contender. Ditto the Devils, ditto the Sharks, the Blackhawks. I want to see teams get back into the mix. And it is a long, arduous road. As excited as we are about Bedard and Celebrini's respective breakouts, they still need more guys. Spencer Knight's having a great year for Chicago, somebody I would consider in the Vezina mix for right now, at least through the first month and a half of the season. Both those guys need more, but you see the road. You see where the Devils are. You see where Montreal is, and that's where Chicago, San Jose, Ottawa to some extent, that's where that cohort of teams is trying to get to. They want to find their 2 or 3 supporting cast guys to build around their 1 or 2 blue chip stars, and you go from there. Now, there are problems. The Devils can't stay healthy. The Senators are having a very hard time staying healthy. And of course, most notably, not all your picks pan out, which is the undercurrent of all this.
No, 100%. It doesn't matter what round you draft players in. Not all of them are going to work out. Obviously, you want as many to work out as possible, but that's just not that's just not reality when it comes to the NHL draft in general. Montreal, they were off to that great start. Nick, you and I were coming on here talking about, hey, they're making us look good right now. And now all of a sudden, they're just not really playing well. I think this is going to turn around, but it is definitely at least a little bit of a concern. I still want to see some more new blood in the playoffs. For as fun, at least to me, as the Panthers are to watch in the playoffs, I know that's a very hot take on the show just because
you got to debase yourself a little bit. You got to debase yourself. Yes, they are scumbags. They're dirty. They're annoying, but they're very good at hockey. And it's hard to remove yourself and your own personal feelings. I am personally tired of the Florida Panthers, but they are a very good hockey team.
Right. It's kind of like the same thing I have, Nick, with the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been very good with Patrick Mahomes, of course, but
the Chiefs have devil magic. That's a little different.
My point was that I'm just tired of watching them go to every Super Bowl. With the Panthers, they're very good at what they do. They can beat you any way you want. I'm just ready for some new blood in the Eastern Conference at this rate. And, the West, that's wide open. I mean, Colorado, I think, is the favorite right now to come out of the West, Nick. I mean, they're just bullying teams, it feels like, on a nightly basis to open the season. I mean, Nathan MacKinnon has been otherworldly this year. And I'll say that. I'm grateful that, I can turn it on whenever I want and just see greatness from him, because he's taking it personally. That playoff loss this past year, Nick, he's taking it personally, and I think he's on a mission right now. And I think that team is going to try to add another piece or two before the trade deadline. So if I wanted to add a bonus one for the end of the segment, it would say pretty grateful for Nathan MacKinnon doing what he's doing to open the year.
We are going to take our second and final break on today's edition of Locked On NHL. When we come back, we'll wrap up talking about what we're thankful for this year in the hockey world. We'll get to USA Hockey, which I know Hunter and I have a whole lot more to say about, right after this. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can leave meaning money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch has helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments. And most importantly, I am not using any spreadsheets. I love that I can review everything, set financial goals, and make better financial decisions. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so easy to understand where my money's going and how to get more out of it. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year subscription. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thank you so much to everyone that is hanging out on this Thanksgiving day with Hunter and I. If you're traveling and seeing family, all that good stuff, hopefully nice, relaxing week. And I want to talk about why I'm thankful for USA Hockey now, Hunter, because this is as good a talent pool as they're ever going to have. You go back and look at the 04, 08, and 12 the Winter Olympics, and the caliber of players Team USA was bringing. In 2010, the best American forward was probably 20-year-old Patrick Kane, maybe Zach Parise, very old Jamie Langenbrunner. That just different caliber of player. You compare that to what Canada was running out there with Sid and Iginla and Jumbo and it's just a different world. And now, yes, Canada still has the higher end guys. MacKinnon, McDavid, and Sid are probably 3 of the 7 or 8 best centers in the world. I don't really have a lot of hesitation in saying that, but Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, when they're at their best, they're right there. Dylan Larkin, as we saw in the 4 Nations, has real juice as a bottom 6 center in this capacity. And should Bill Guerin grace us with some common sense, we get to see Tage Thompson's enormous self in the Olympics down the middle as a 4th-line center. This is as good a talent pool between the forwards, the defensemen. The defensive group is so good they can probably afford to leave Lane Hudson at home. The goaltending group is so good they probably won't even bring Thatcher Demko, who's off to a great start this year in Vancouver. This is as good as Team USA has probably been ever as far as talent. And now it's time to make it happen. Now it's time to capitalize.
It's time to win gold. Like, I know a lot of Canadian listeners are going to listen to me say that and be like, you're out of your mind. But this roster, if done right, is good enough, I think, to win gold at the Olympics.
You only got to beat Canada once. You only got to win the gold medal game.
100%. And you saw the 4 Nations. I liked most of the roster, except for a few on the margins. That is where you have to really get this right. Most of this roster picks itself. You have the high-end guys, that forward, defense, and the goalie. But you have to get the right players on the margins right, because when you're struggling to score goals potentially, I want the players who are scoring more in the NHL and not players, no disrespect, like, Brock Nelson, Vince Trocheck, JT Miller, and all that. I would rather have players like a Jason Robertson, for example, a Cole Caulfield, for example, Tage Thompson. Like, that should be a given, Nick, considering he scored the goal to win the U.S. the World Championships this past year. I mean, if Tage Thompson isn't on this team, I don't know what we're doing here. But again, it's just on Guerin and them to get this right. And I just don't know how much confidence I have, Nick, because, you and I were tweeting about this earlier today. I don't know what Billy Guerin is trying to say to Pierre LeBrun here. He said, no matter what their offensive gifts are, if you can't check, it's probably not the tournament for you. Billy Guerin, my man, you do realize the Olympics are under IIHF rules and not NHL rules, right? The way the IIHF officials, it's not the same as the NHL, where if there's like a big hit, for example, those refs in international hockey are more likely to penalize it, not NHL refs. So I don't want them to galaxy brain this, and I get nervous that they will, because they have done that so many times over the years, Nick. Like, you go to 2014, the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, but they have the real potential here. You can roll 4 lines. You have 6 great defensemen, and you have Connor Hellebuck, who will hopefully show up, and he's going to get the start. But you can, have other options. Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, for example. But got to get the margins right. This is the best talent pool we've had of our lifetime. So let's see if they get it right, man. I'm really looking forward to this, because I think if done right, they can beat Canada. I know that might be a hot take, but I think if
they did it once, they did it in February. They beat them the first time they played. That's doable.
And I think if you make the necessary improvements along the edges, this team has what it takes to win gold and beat Canada in that game.
Yep. The last point on this before we move on to our final ones, I understand the mindset, and a lot of that is tied to history. Canada has generally been a more talented team than the USA. And because of that, the United States has looked for ways to close that gap. And being that they don't have the talent, they have often looked to muck these games up, turn them into dump and chase, grind it out style games to slow them down, to try and create lower scoring games in hopes that you get to those coin flip moments and you win the coin flip at the end. All it takes is one bounce in the overtime of the gold medal game in 2010, and there's no golden goal. You know, that's the mindset Team USA has based on its history. And I get it. That is still the best way to stop a high-powered, fast-paced team is to play dump and chase and really forecheck aggressively. But you have the guys now. You can play a transition game and really get into the type of game that might not have suited you 5 to 10 years ago. But now you can run Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, Kyle Connor, Jason Robertson, Caulfield. You have so many wingers between Gensel and Boldy and the Tkachuk brothers. You have got so much speed and so much skill on this team. And you still got the Tkachuks for your forechecking and your pressure.
And your sandpaper and your grit. Like,
yeah,
those
exactly.
guys will mix it up. That's just who they are. And they're insanely skilled. So there you go.
Yeah. And then on the back end, you'll have Slavin, you'll have McAvoy, you'll have the types of skill sets that you covet. Don't overthink it. And to wrap up today's show, I will be a little corny here. I just want to say thank you to everyone that takes the time. Hunter and I grind it out in the content trenches every day. When you are in the dog days of July and August and there are no transactions to report, there are no evaluations to be done because there are no games being played, and all we have are tweets and columns and podcasts to read the tea leaves of. You can question your sanity a little bit, but doing these shows, writing, hanging out on Twitter, watching games, all of that stuff, the community around the sport is what makes it great and why I always say it can be better. It always can be better, and we should always be trying to welcome more people in. We should always be trying to help more people understand how great hockey is. And it's a great game already, and we can keep pushing it to make it better, to make it more inclusive, to get more people in the fold. Because the more people there are in the fold, the better the sport gets, the more the community's engaged. And that's what it's all about, man. Sports are at their best when everybody has an opinion. And we come out of an Olympics where, you know, America wins gold. That's a golden opportunity for getting that footprint in the US TV market that the NHL is struggling with right now. I am hopeful. I am optimistic. And most of all, I'm thankful for everyone who listens to our shows, who reads our stuff, who replies to us on Twitter, who replies to us on YouTube. You are the reason we get to do this. If you guys don't watch, you don't listen, we don't get to do the show. So thank you to everyone who listens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more with that, whether it's, you know, on Locked On Penguins or here. Thank you guys so much for always commenting, you know, sending DMs and all that good stuff. It really is a ton of fun to do this on a daily basis. You know, Nick and I, you know, text virtually every day about, you know, potential topics for the upcoming week, just with games from the last week. And we want to bring up the latest storylines that we think are the most important. And, you know, it's a lot of fun, prepping for the show, getting to do it. I'm glad that Nick wanted to jump on with me about a year and a half ago when I was looking for a new co-host for the Thursday edition of the shows. And you know, it was the perfect fit just because Nick and I have known each other for so long. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. And thank you guys so much for continuing to listen to / watch the show. It's a ton of fun. And I hope everyone that is celebrating American Thanksgiving has a wonderful holiday, eat all the good food, watch a lot of good football, whether that's the NFL that day or college football later on this weekend, because we got the college football playoff coming up, which is going to be a lot of fun. And of course, enjoy all the hockey. You got the annual Thanksgiving Eve games on Wednesday. You got Friday, you got the Black Friday games. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Locked On NHL. Thank you so much to everybody that made Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Locked On NHL is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll talk to you guys next week.